Hello, today we're going to be looking at some more Mate 1 puzzles from both perspectives, and I'll tell you before each puzzle who it is to play. As well as that, you'll have 30 seconds for each puzzle, but you can always pause the video in case you need more time. Be sure to check out the first 6 videos after you finish watching this one. So I really hope you enjoy this video, and that being said, let's get started. So here's our first puzzle from the white's perspective, and you have 30 seconds to solve it starting now. Time is up. The correct move is rook into d7 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the d7 rook, and the king can't move to c8 or e8 because there's two black rooks on either of those squares. One black rook per square, and the black king cannot move on top of a black rook. As well as that, the king can't move to c7 or e7 because the d7 rook is controlling both those squares, and the king can't capture the d7 rook because the knight on e5 is defending it. And there's nothing to block the check or capture the rook, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So here's the next puzzle. You have 30 seconds to solve it, and it's from the black's perspective, and your 30 seconds starts now. Time is up. The correct move is queen to f3 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the f3 queen, and can't move to g2 because the f3 queen is also controlling that square. The king can't move to h2 because there's a white pawn in that square, and the white king cannot move on top of a white pawn. The king can't move to g1 because that square is controlled by the h3 knight. There's nothing to block the check or capture the queen, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So this puzzle is also black to play and mate. So you have 30 seconds starting now. Time is up. The correct move is rook to g2 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the g2 rook, and the king can't capture the g2 rook because it's defended by the f3 pawn. The king can't move to h2 or f2 because the g2 rook is controlling both those squares, and the king can't move to h1 or f1 because the knight on g3 is controlling those squares. There's nothing to block the check or capture the rook, so this is checkmate. Let's move on to the next puzzle. So here's the next puzzle. It's white to play, and you have 30 seconds to solve it starting now. Time is up. The correct move is rook to e8 checkmate. This is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the e8 rook, and the king can't capture the e8 rook because if he did, the bishop on b5 would be checking him. So that rook is defended by the bishop. The king can't move to c8 because it is controlled by the rook. Note that if the king moved to c8, there'd be no king on d8 to stop it from attacking c8. So the king can't move there. The king also can't move to e7 because the rook is controlling that square. And the king can't move to d7 because the b5 bishop is controlling that square. There's nothing to block the check or capture the rook on e8. So this is officially checkmate. Let's move on to our final puzzle for today. So here's the final puzzle for today from the white's perspective, and you have 30 seconds to solve it starting now. Time is up. The correct move is queen to d8 checkmate. This is an example of a dovetail mate, which I'll go more into depth about in a future video. So this is checkmate because the king is in check thanks to the d8 queen, and the queen is controlling d7, d6, e7, e8, f8, and f6. So the king can't move to any of those squares. The king can't move to e6 because there's a black rook there, and the black king cannot move on top of a black rook. And the f7 square is occupied by the black queen, so the black king cannot move there. There's nothing to capture the queen or block the check, so this is checkmate. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any feedback, you can post it in the comments or the form in the description of videos. The form is anonymous, so I won't know who filled it out. Please hit that like button, subscribe. It takes me a really long time to make these videos just for you. You can also visit the chess playlist or the Mate in One playlist if you want multiple videos just like this one. So I just wanted to give a big thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you next time.